and welcome to STEM Business School and Beyond. And my name is Allison Davis, and I'm with the MBA Admissions Office. Our focus today is on how you can combine your background in STEM with a business education. With me are two alumni and current students who share why they chose to pursue an MBA and how they are combining their experiences at Stanford with their passion for STEM. Our purpose today is not to describe the MBA program in depth or to explain the admissions process. This information is available on our website and through admissions events that you can attend on or off campus. We have 45 minutes together today, and we're going to focus entirely on your questions. So let's start by having each of our panelists introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about what you did before business school and what you're doing now. So let's start with you, Bryce.
Sure. So my name is Bryce Meredig. I'm in the MBA class of 2014 here at the GSB. And before business school, I came here straight out of a PhD in material science and engineering at Northwestern in Chicago. My research involved trying to design new materials atom by atom on the computer, so pretty theoretical stuff. And I decided to come to the GSB to see how I could combine business with my interest in science and bring more business thinking to science.
Thank you, Bryce. And Mata?
I'm Mata. I'm also in the class of 2014 with Bryce. Before the GSB, I have a bachelor's in electrical and computer engineering from Cornell and a master's in management science and first as a software developer, then as a management consultant, and then doing product for a tech startup in San Francisco. So for me, I knew that I really wanted to start a business, and I felt that the background I had gave me all the technical expertise, but not the business expertise to really start a successful business on my own. So I felt that this was the right time to come to business school and kind of enhance that business knowledge that I do have.
All right, and Savannah?
Hi, everyone. My name is Savannah McCoy, and I am an alum of the class of 2013. Before business school, I got a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from Cornell, similar to Mata, and I worked for 4 years at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, which is a NASA facility that focuses primarily on planetary exploration. And I was a mechanical engineer there. I had a highly technical role, so did everything from design, test, analysis, and ultimately ended up leading a team of engineers on the test effort for the Curiosity Mars rover, which is currently on Mars and landed last summer. So that's a little bit about my pre-MBA experience. In terms of why I decided to pursue an MBA, the story is somewhat similar to my peers on the panel here, in that I had the technical expertise and I really wanted to build out some of the kind of business functional experience as well as just the managerial mindset.
All right. First question that came from someone who had signed up in advance. During your experience in the STEM fields that you came from, was there any particular situation or experience that fueled your desire to pursue an MBA? Bryce, again, let's start with you. Was there any particular situation that really made it clear to you, gee, I want to get an MBA?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually glad you tapped me to answer this one because I was eager to do it. So what I saw, in the materials department at Northwestern and just at the university as a whole, there's a lot of great science and engineering research happening, and a fair number of the professors there want to start companies. They're trying to figure out ways to bring their lab bench innovations to the market. But oftentimes when they tried to do that, they would run into what I would call kind of mundane business barriers or bottlenecks that would really prevent them from fulfilling that dream. And these were incredibly brilliant, technically savvy people. And I wanted to have that technical side, but also have the business acumen and the knowledge to make that leap from basic science to stuff that impacts people's everyday lives.
All right. How about you, Mata?
I think for me, I realized I needed an MBA when I worked for a tech startup in SF called Yola. That was, a great product, and I felt that we had a better product than most of our competitors, but we made a lot of business mistakes. We didn't really think through a business plan, think about acquiring users the right way. And being there and working in the startup that I really care about and seeing that it was, in a way, failing, I realized that if I started my own company, I wouldn't want to go to those mistakes. So I came into the GSB knowing very clearly the things I didn't know, and I was very excited to learn them. So.
All right. And Savannah?
Yeah, so my trajectory was similar but a little bit different. So coming out of Cornell with a technical degree, I can say that I, at the time, definitely did not intend to get an MBA. I didn't have a very clear vision of what the next kind of 5 to 10 years looked like, but getting an MBA wasn't something that was in kind of my near-term goals initially out of graduation. And it was really motivated by, I don't think there was one defining experience, but just kind of the experience as a whole in working at an environment that is so highly technical and is so highly science-driven, and necessarily so being that it's kind of NASA and doing things for the first time. But I started to see kind of the business and management deficiency in myself primarily, but also in some of my peers and some of my superiors. And I just kind of had a reevaluation of what I wanted and where I was going. And I thought the best way to kind of bolster the skill set that I thought I was missing was by going back to school and ultimately getting an MBA.
Thank you. And I'm going to come back to Magnus. I think you're back on the line. Are you, Magnus?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yes. And I'm going to have you first introduce yourself, Magnus, and say a little bit about what you were doing before business school and what you're doing now.
Okay. Sorry, everyone. I had some technical difficulties. So my name is Magnus Johansson. I grew up in Sweden, and I have a master's in pharmacology, and then I got a PhD in cell biology, and followed up by doing a postdoc at UCSF as a cancer researcher. So I came to the MBA program without any business experience whatsoever, and I loved it at GSB. During my time there, I worked for a pharma company, and currently I'm managing a cancer business for a medical device company. And I graduated in 2012, so I graduated last year.
And Magnus, was there any particular experience or situation that really fueled your desire for an MBA?
Yeah, definitely. So for me, when I started out as a scientist, the reason why I wanted to be in research was that I wanted to help people. So I was a cancer researcher trying to find new ways of treating cancer. And ironically enough, a colleague of mine managed to make a big discovery, and then we realized that we didn't know how to commercialize it. So I just realized that having a deep knowledge in one field isn't enough. If you don't know how to actually bring it to market, you won't end up benefiting patients. So that was kind of a triggering moment for me when I decided that I needed to go back to school, round off my career with an MBA.
Wonderful. And how would each of you say that your STEM background helped prepare you for business school? Let's start with you, Mata.
So I think looking at the courses, it was definitely easier for me to go through the more quantitative courses. So although I had no previous experience with things like accounting or even data modeling and so forth, I found it easier to go to those courses than the other courses that came harder to me, like the communication courses and the courses on entrepreneurship and leadership. But I found those, although those came harder to me, I found the most value in those. And ultimately, I think it really helped me while I was at business school to kind of pursue my goal of starting a company. So I thought that was really great.
Bryce?
Yeah, I mean, so to touch on something besides the courses, I agree with what Mada just said. But to me, I think if business done well or done right is actually very quantitative. And I've found since I've been here, there's an expectation that good managers are very good with numbers. And you'll be asked questions whether you're starting your own business or leading people in a different business. What are your critical metrics? How are you tracking them? How are you driving them? What are the knobs you turn for success? And it almost always comes back to numbers. And if you're just making gut calls and you can't back them up with data, I think that's not a good way to lead. So, I found that's the expectation around here, is that you are savvy with numbers, and so the STEM background fits in naturally with that.
Okay. Magnus?
Yeah, so I definitely agree with the previous comments. Something that I really appreciated is that when you already have a good education, when you're a STEM candidate, you're already specialized. And this frees you up during your MBA, so you can go really wide and take the classes you're really interested in. A lot of my classmates were trying to get that specialization through the MBA. So, for example, by going deep in finance or going deep in the different areas like entrepreneurship. But I already felt that I had a deep enough knowledge in biology, so I didn't have that problem.
And Savannah?
So I definitely agree with what the other panelists have said in terms of kind of the ease with which some of the quantitative coursework comes to someone who has a STEM background or is comfortable with like the math and sciences. One counterpoint I would say, though, is, at least for me, and I think this is probably definitely kind of an individual reflection or maybe personality specific, but the style of business school was very different for me, kind of coming from an engineering background. And part of that is the teaching method, the case method, a lot of participation points and case discussions. And that was kind of a stark contrast from my engineering background, where you're graded primarily on problem sets and not necessarily on these group aspects. So that said, it was a challenge for me coming from STEM, but at the same time, I see that as one of my greatest growths and kind of takeaway from the 2 years at business school. And so for me, that provided a very strong incentive to make the decision to get an MBA, and reflecting back is one of the more valuable things that I've taken away.
Right. Someone asked, we hear about people like Marissa Mayer and Mark Zuckerberg and a multitude of others who are engineers, never went to business school, and have been extremely successful on the business side of Silicon Valley. What do you think an engineer could learn or gain in business school that he or she could not accomplish by just continuing to work in their current companies? Bryce?
Yeah, I think so. That's a great question. It's one that I've been asked too, is, why not just go work? Why not go into consulting or something and kind of learn MBA type skills on the fly? I would go back to actually what Magnus said, which is that for me anyway, business school was a really efficient way to go really broad in a lot of different areas of business and understand different industries, different functions, different types of products and services. So at least for me, it was the right choice in terms of being able to go broad, go general, rather than if I had ended up in a job, it would have been a highly specialized scientific job most likely. And I didn't want to go deeper down that rabbit hole. I wanted to, pull back a little bit and get a broader survey of what I could do.
Anna?
I kind of want to echo what Bryce just said. I think similarly, I actually did a year in management consulting, and I didn't feel that I got the right business experience. I worked with some really big companies, and I learned a lot, but I learned a lot more about client engagement and business at a very large scale. And for me, I was looking to learn about how to run a business at a smaller scale. And for that, you need a really broad range of business experience. And I think with this general management program, Stanford really puts an emphasis on that. So in the first year, you have to take courses in all the different sides of business. And while in the second year you take electives and you can focus on what you want to do, in the first year make sure that you have a really broad understanding of all the different sides of business.
Magnus, would you like to comment?
Yeah, I'm not an engineer, but yeah, I think it's. I would say that you're learning. The benefit of getting an MBA is that you're learning everything that you're traditionally pretty bad at least personally, as a scientist. It was a really steep learning curve. And I think if you're trying to learn the same things on the job, especially for me, since it was very far from my comfort zone, a lot of these things I was learning, it would have taken a tremendous amount of time to get exposure to all those fields. So it's a great way of, in 2 years, to get exposure to a lot of different fields, like Bryce was mentioning.
And Savannah, any comments from you with your ME background?
I mean, I guess I would just say that those examples are highly anecdotal, and everyone kind of has a different path, and each individual has to make a decision that's right for them. And I think you can find examples that would be exceptions to pretty much any role. So I guess that's all I have.
All right. Someone asked, for those of you with an engineering background, how is it working with your peers as a student here? Is it easier to work with, other engineers who have similar backgrounds or other STEM backgrounds versus the other peers you may have that don't have those backgrounds? And you want to kick it off, Bryce?
Sure, yeah. So I can actually give an example. So it's actually great. I've loved, being one of the scientists here. I mean, it's, you're a smaller percentage of the class, so people tend to remember who the scientists and engineers are. And people at the GSB, since it's such a great community, are very open to, learning about others' expertise and trying to connect that to what they're doing. So as an example, like I said, I have a materials background. And a friend of mine here from my section was doing a project in Rwanda where they were trying to develop extremely low-cost waterproof flooring for Rwandan homes. And she and I sat down and had a conversation over coffee about how, from a materials perspective, how would you hit the properties that they wanted in terms of waterproof, strong enough, durable enough, and yet incredibly cheap. I mean, it had to be the point where, you're not importing raw materials like plastics that are made in other countries. You can't afford that there. So it was a chance for me to apply my expertise in materials to a totally different situation. But she knew that I had a materials background, so she tapped me for that.
Mana?
I think it's definitely, especially at the beginning, it is easier to be in teams with people who have similar backgrounds because you can communicate with them better. But I have really kind of gone out of my way and sought friends and teammates that were different, because I think I learned a lot more from working with people that come from very diverse backgrounds, so from finance or nonprofit. These are people that are incredible, and working with them, I learned a different way of working, a different way of approaching a problem. And similar to Bryce's experiences, I was able to bring my expertise and help people launch their blogs or build a website with my, my software development experience.
Can you say a little bit more about how You said you learned to work differently from working with people who were so different from you. Can you give any examples of what it was that you learned?
I think I'm trying to think of an example. So, for example, in the first year at Stanford, in the first quarter, you take a course on leadership where you are together with your squad of 6 people in a room, and you guys go through simulations. And it was very interesting seeing how people who came from a finance or a much heavier consulting background looked at things and the way they approached a problem versus me, where I try to only look at numbers. They looked at different things in different ways that, our solution was impacting the client, and I thought that was pretty interesting. And initially, it actually caused conflict because we had such different ways of looking at the problem. But as we moved along, we became a team. We started to learn from each other and kind of bring our different points of view into the problem.
And I imagine that's part of the learning too, is just managing that conflict and
and I guess that's what the course was all about, managing, and I think they did that on purpose. They put very diverse people in that group of 6. Like we came from very different backgrounds, different countries, and it was really interesting, and it was an amazing experience, and I'm like very close with all of them, and one of my co-founders was one of the people in that group. So,
Savannah, how about for you? What was it like working with people who had non-STEM backgrounds?
So I would echo a lot of what Mata said. I think initially, particularly kind of given my background in a very technical organization, I was much more comfortable just kind of communicating and interacting with engineers and people with science and math backgrounds. But ultimately, the greatest teams are composed of a diverse set of individuals, and each kind of background and experience that a person brings to a team or to a group shades the perspective that they have on a particular problem, and the sum of those parts is so much greater than any individual or any kind of subset or specialty within that team. So I think it just makes for so much more richness in a team environment and problem solving, et cetera, seeing the different paths that people have to a solution.
Thank you. In terms of your technical skills, were any of you concerned about maintaining your technical skills while you were in school, and even going off into a different kind of career? Are you concerned about that, and how did you go about maintaining your technical skills? And Magnus, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, I think part of it is that yes, you're going to lose some of the technical skills. I think it's inevitable, but it's also you're shifting the focus. So for me, I went from being very much of a specialist, and now in my current role, I'm much more of a generalist. And no one is asking me questions. We have other people in the organization who are supposed to be the specialists, but the benefit I have is that I can talk to the researchers, to the engineers, and I can also bring that message to the marketing team. So I would say that my understanding has, the way I try to understand my field has definitely changed, and the needs have changed. But other than that, I try to keep up to speed with keep in contact with my older colleagues, go to scientific meetings, and so on. So you just have to do a bit more footwork and keep up to speed.
Okay. And Savannah, how about for you? Any concern about losing your technical skills while you were in business school?
Honestly, not really. Yeah, that wasn't something that I was really that concerned about, but at the same time, I was coming from a background, albeit highly technical. I didn't have a PhD, so I hadn't gone to quite the extent of specialization. And I think it's like anything. You just have to kind of continue to push yourself and learn. And if you're not getting kind of that exercise in one place, you just have to find it somewhere else. So it wasn't something that I worried about or really struggled with.
Okay, and Mata, you wanted to comment?
Yeah, so I think it's really a personal choice. I think the Stanford MBA is flexible enough that if you want to continue to enhance your technical skills, you can. So one of my co-founders took 4 computer science courses in the first year and advanced computer science courses. So for him, while he was learning business, he was also enhancing his technical skills. I learned how to code in Python, for example, which I had never done before because that was something I was interested in, and at the same time getting a great business education. And I think if you want to, you can definitely go deeper into either your field or a different field, because you are at Stanford and you can take courses in other departments, and I think it's a great idea to take courses in other departments. So again, yeah, personal choice.
Right?
Yeah, so I would echo that too, because I ended up starting a company that's developing software for materials scientists with another GSBer who has a materials background. And so we're going to technical conferences. I've still been writing publications while I've been here. I was a Stanford materials undergrad, so I've stayed in really close touch with all my former professors, and I swing by their offices. We talk shop. So you can, like Mata said, you can keep those skills as sharp as you want if that fits with your goal, or if your goals are to be more of a generalist, there's other paths you can take. So I think it's totally flexible, and it's kind of what you want to do.
And as Mata mentioned, you're on the campus of Stanford University with 6 other, world-class schools. So it's very common for our students to take, classes in engineering or earth sciences or medical school. And you can actually take up to 12 units and have those count toward your MBA. And the program is flexible enough that you can very easily pursue a second degree. And so that's quite popular among our students. About 1 in 6 are doing a second degree. So it might be a master's in computer science or a law degree, whatever interests them here on campus. Let's talk a little bit about innovation. And are there any lessons learned during business school that have changed the way you look at innovation within your chosen field? Who would like to start? Bryce?
Yeah, I think yes, especially coming from sort of an academic or scientific background where there's a lot of talk about ideas and having great ideas and, brilliant strokes of insight and stuff. And then, when we talked earlier in the call about how to take, fundamental innovations and translate them to the marketplace, which I think is really important to innovation. And a lot of that is, can you execute and get the job done and ship something? And I think that's something that you learn about a lot in business school, and that's something that I think was missing, at least in my sort of academic training, where it was, have a great idea, and that sort of, you've proven your point, but now it's, you have to have a great idea and get it into a customer's hands, and that's a very different thing.
Anna?
I think I also used to look at innovation from a technical point of view. So innovation had to mean that you do something better or you do something that no one else has done before. I think now I look at innovation more as finding a product market fit and finding a need that I can find a way to solve. And maybe the way you solve it, it's not that different than how other people have done it, but it's more like maybe you take something that someone else has done and you apply it to a different market, and that can be innovation. Or innovation can be a different way of doing a business model, which is something I'm trying with my business right now. So I think, I stopped looking at it just as a technical innovation and more of company or product innovation.
Okay. How about you, Magnus?
I definitely agree with Bruce and Mata. I would say another thing that I realized in B school is that innovation is not just about the best technical solution. Maybe sometimes the best solution is not the one that's the most elegant one, the most precise one, but the one that can actually be adopted. And often something that's very simple and cheap could be a much better solution than something that's very elegant and very complicated.
Savannah?
So the only thing I would add is that I think, at least for me, when I was working in a kind of a technical capacity, I almost started to get a little bit of tunnel vision and focus so much on the task at hand and the task that my team was working on that I neglected kind of innovation that can potentially come from outside of your field. And I think that one thing that the GSB is really great at is giving exposure to a lot of different industries and helping students see how innovations can kind of translate across industries or inspire better, more elegant solutions, as Magnus said, maybe in a different capacity.
And Savannah, how have you leveraged your business degree to launch your career or accelerate your career since you are still in a STEM field?
Yeah, so I mean, my MBA definitely enabled me to do what I'm doing now. So I went into Stanford wanting to round out my skill set, but also with this desire to pursue entrepreneurship and have enough kind of business skills as well as enough confidence even to go down that path. And I'm working now at a biotech startup that's very early stage. We have a product that's kind of going through FDA approval, and I'm responsible for the business function, so marketing, operations, and coordinating everything, even from a project management perspective, with the engineers and the science. So I really have that cross-functional experience that I was looking for, and I think it was very much enabled by both my engineering background, but also the skills that I built at Stanford.
And Bryce and Mata, you both have mentioned launching businesses. Can you isolate what is it that you think you are bringing to those businesses that you wouldn't have otherwise if you hadn't been getting the MBA?
It's interesting because I think we're all of the three co-founders of my business are engineers who are starting a business. I think it's interesting that bringing that those two skills together, it allows us to each focus on doing something that's fairly technical, but at the same time make business decisions together and make really sound business decisions, and being able to run numbers and do things in a very quantifiable and profitable way, which is something that never happened in my own startup. So I think it's really great, and we see a lot of value from having both those backgrounds, so both the business degree and the technical background beforehand.
How about you, Brian?
I mean, thinking about where I was at the end of my PhD, and I was always somebody who kind of had an entrepreneurial bent or the inclination, I would have had no idea where to even start in terms of forming and running a business. And some of that's really mundane day-to-day stuff, and some of that's longer-term strategy and vision. And to me, business school or the MBA has been about how do you marshal people and resources behind pursuing a really important goal. And that's something that I just as an academic, I had no idea, frankly, zero idea how to do that. And now that I've been, that I'm kind of looking at the end of my time at the GSB, I can't pinpoint any one class or any one person I met, but just kind of steeping in this for as long as I have, it's changed that situation dramatically in terms of the level of sophistication. And it comes through when, we're talking to investors. There was a time when I would have viewed them, when I would have been, I guess, intimidated by that, and now it's very much a pure conversation. Or even that they're maybe even talking up to me in some cases. And sometimes I have to take a step back and say, wow, that never, ever would have happened before I went to the GSB.
Great. Someone is asking about classes at the D schools. So We have a design school here at Stanford that we do a lot of collaboration with. In fact, one of our professors, Jim Patel, was the co-founder of the D School, and that's a great resource for our graduate students. So if any of you took classes at the D School, can you talk a little bit about what that was like and how that enhanced your MBA education?
Sure. So I took a design school class called Launchpad that's taught by a design and product guy, Terry, and Michael Deering, which is a VC here in the Valley. And it was probably one of the most amazing experiences. My team formed in that class, and we didn't stick with the idea in that class. And because we learned through it that although we launched it, we realized that was maybe not the right fit for us. But we became a team, and we incorporated the company, we learned how to work together, and we really learned how to bring a product to life, which was amazing because we then spent the next 2 months over summer and we used everything we learned in that class, plus everything we had learned in all the business school classes, and took an idea from just an idea to being, a launch company with revenues at the end of summer. So it was great, not just because of the people teaching it, but it was a very different experience than some of the other business school classes. And we were, the other teams were not just business school, they were from all these other fields, so we learned a lot from the peers in that class, so it's pretty cool experience.
Great. Anyone else take classes at the D School that would like to add anything else?
This is Magnus. I took Biodesign Innovation, which is a class when you're basically starting a medical device startup, and it was pretty incredible, and especially I think anyone with a STEM background would benefit from learning design thinking, because as an engineer, as a scientist, you're really good at using the scientific method when breaking down a problem, and design thinking is basically the opposite. You look at the customer, you look at the end user, try to learn as much as possible about how they use the product, how to empathize with them, and to just understand how they are thinking. So you learn two very good complementary methods when solving a problem. And when you get out in the real world, it's really useful to have those 2 points of views.
Thank you. We're coming up on 45 minutes. We have a few minutes left. So I'm going to ask each of you do you just have any last, words of wisdom or pearls, again, particularly for our STEM audience as they're thinking of if an MBA is worthwhile for them. So any advice about anything? I'll start with you, Bryce.
Yeah. So I would go back to the point that was made before about, Mark Zuckerberg didn't need an MBA. Bill Gates didn't even need a college degree, right? I mean, I guess I would just urge everyone to worry about your own situation and think, where am I? What's right for me? As you think about, whether the GSB is a good fit, only you can make that decision, and there's going to be examples and counterexamples for every possible contingency and plan you could pursue. And it's really easy to get bogged down in that. So my advice would just be really focus on your own situation and what feels right for you. And that's what I did, because I definitely had a lot of people question my decision to come to business school, but I'm really glad I did it.
And I'm going to ask each of you the same question, but if any of you also wants to comment on timing, how did you know when the right time was to get the MBA?
So I think for me, I'm on the older side of my class, and I was very worried coming in that maybe I shouldn't do an MBA, and I really struggled with this decision whether I should just try to start a company on my own or come to do an MBA. And most of the advice I got was not to do an MBA. But looking back, I really think it was probably one of the best decisions of my life to come and do it. I think the things I learned, and they have enabled me to really build a successful business and learn how to build a successful business. And I feel that I would take that with me wherever I go, no matter what happens. And also I want to urge people who have maybe more experience than others to not be intimidated by that, and think, again, as Bryce said, is this the right time for you? I don't think there's really any age. I mean, we have people here in my class from 0 to 16 years of experience, and I think everyone has found the MBA very valuable. And for me, I think the time when I knew I needed to come and do an MBA was when I found problems I couldn't solve without an MBA, and saw problems in a company that I had no idea how to fix. And a lot of them were softer skill problems, like how do you retain people, how do you keep them engaged. I could see that all these things are going wrong, and I would have not known how to do those things right if I just went and tried to start a company. While now I feel I learned so much and I'm so much better.
Magnus, any last thoughts?
Yeah, well, what I liked about the MBA is it's very, very, very different from graduate studies in any other field, especially STEM fields, I believe. You learn anything that I didn't learn it during my PhD. When I got into my MBA, I didn't know the difference between economics and finance. I was completely business naive, and I learned so much, and it was really interesting. So, and as Bryce said, figure out if it's a good fit for you and if this is the right time, and if so, go for it.
Thank you. Savannah, you have the last word.
All right. Well, my three kind of peers here on the panel made it easy for me because I think they summed it up really nicely. It really is an individual decision, and for all of us here, I think it was the right decision and a transformative experience. But I guess I would just encourage everyone who's listening today to just reflect on where they are in both their technical careers and where they see that going in the future, and just be very intentional about kind of the schools that you're looking at and the decisions that you make, be it to go to business school or to pursue another path. I don't think you can go wrong, but just be intentional and make those decisions with purpose and have kind of that end goal in sight.
Thank you. If you have further questions, you can contact our office, and there is on our website, there's a place where you can ask a question, and we're going to show you that in just a minute. So you can ask a question, and you can also call us. We're open every day from 8 to 4, and our phone number is on the website, and we do a pretty good job of getting back to people quickly. The other thing I would encourage you to do is to fill out the Stay in Touch form, which is on our website. And the reason you'd want to do this is we would like to keep you posted on our upcoming travel schedule for the information sessions I mentioned that we do all over the world, and other relevant news like our new computer science MBA joint degree, which launched this year, and the MS Electrical Engineering MBA joint degree, which we expect to launch next fall. So thank you very much to our panelists for taking the time to speak with us, and thank you all for attending. Good night.